good. So this is my my accounting systems class, and this is Darin Reed from Regional. And if you're good, I'm going to just let you take it from here.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Well, I'll just start with a little bit about me. First with a question. Does anyone know where Hoboken, Georgia is? I don't blame you that you don't know. It's a small little town. That's where I'm from. It's between Waycross and Brunswick, if you know where those are. 500 people, one red light, big city. I picked accounting in high school. Danielle, are these accounting majors?
These are all accounting majors, mostly juniors and seniors.
Okay, great. So I picked accounting in high school. We had a class with a book and a workbook, and I was hooked. Never changed my mind. I'm sure many of you probably have gone back and forth, but anyway, I went to college at Georgia Southern with Danielle. That's how I met her. And after college, I went back to Hoboken, or Waycross, the town next to it. I worked there about 2.5 years for an oil company and convenience store chain. I was an accounting manager at first and then a controller. So managed just a few people, not many, but decided to move to Atlanta. So I made a big change there. I went with a firm called Darin and Tucker at the time. They're Darin Tucker now. They've just dropped the and. I don't know if you've heard of them. I think you're going to have someone come speak.
Yeah, Lily works there now.
Okay.
And then we've got a few that have had internships at Darin Tucker. They hire a lot from Albany.
So to give you context, I was the first staff they hired for the Atlanta office. So that was back in 2012, I think, something like that. So I was with Darin and Tucker for 7 years. I started out doing audits for hospitals specifically. So started out there, did cost reports, and then kind of got consulting. Audits are here's your checklist, and you're going to go through it and follow it and, make sure you cross your T's and all that. Consulting was a lot more, you're kind of thrown into a problem and how do we fix it? I found that I enjoyed that aspect a lot more for me. A little less structured. It's just, we have problems, help us fix it. Some of the stuff that I did was system implementations. I've done like 50 of those. I can't keep count anymore of how many of those I've done, but so I was going to clients, including Chris Regional, when they were converting systems and they didn't have the staff, to do the system conversion and do the daily job. And then the position opened up here at Chris, but the controller left in the middle of a conversion. So I decided, I was tired of traveling. I'd done that a lot. I think I had 116 nights out in 1 year. It was a record at Darin and Tucker at the time. So anyway, decided to go back. So I kind of started out in private, went public accounting, and now I'm back in private. And I've been here about 5 years. So been in the controller position the whole time, but we continue to convert systems. So I've actually just done a payroll conversion and I'm working on a supply conversion right now. So I was going to show y'all a couple of things today, if that's good with you. It's kind of on my month-end process, what kind of ties some of this stuff in for you. So let me share my screen. Let's see. Okay, can y'all see my screen?
Yeah. Can you make it a little bit bigger? Can you zoom a little bit?
Yes, hang on.
And can you say what you mean by systems conversion? Like just explain a little bit what that is.
Yeah, so when I say that, so we're going from, it might be a general ledger system where, as an accountant that we live and breathe in the general ledger system where we're posting journal entries, we're producing our financial statements. We're going from an older system that they've probably had for 20 years in my experience. That's typical. And then we're going to a new one that has more functionality is what they're really looking for. So just as an example, Our old system here before, if you had a journal entry and it was 200 lines, you had to key it. So you would go in the system and key every debit, every credit, every GL account. Now with the new system we have, we can import the journal entries from Excel, and I'm actually going to show you that piece in a minute. So it's a lot of work. You have to kind of work with the vendor, whoever that software vendor is. It typically takes, depending on what the implementation is, might be 8 months, might be a year, might be 2, start to finish. So, and a lot of this we do on top of what we would normally, what we normally do for our day-to-day jobs. All right, so actually I'm going to start out with prepaid. Let me make this bigger. So every month we have to reconcile our prepaid insurance account. Does anyone know what a prepaid account is? Have y'all covered that? Anybody tell me what that is?
Come on.
I mean, prepaid is very self-indicative. It's something that you have paid for in advance of using it or in advance of when you might technically need to have paid for it.
That's correct. So we're always trying to match our revenues with our expenses, right? So for here, we pay insurance once a year. So in June of 2023, we can just look at this. This is our umbrella insurance. We paid the $60,208.04 up front, but it's effectively going to be used throughout the year. And then we'll pay it again a year later. So you end up with a bunch of invoices getting posted to this balance sheet account, and then we have to make sure we're expensing them every month in the proper month, and that this account ties back. It should always tie back to our journal ledger, this reconciliation. So I love Excel, I live in it every day. This tool is something that we helped develop when I was a contractor here, that makes prepaids a lot easier. It shouldn't be a complex account, but it can be if you let things get out of hand. But there's a lot of formulas in this workbook. You can pick, we pick the month here. We put the purchase price in. It knows that between June of 23 and June of 24, there's actually 366 days because of leap year. How much would that daily amortization be? You can see this. I know it's probably really small for y'all, but there's some crazy formulas in here to help us with all that. Our year end is June 30. So I can tell if we did this in June of 23, that's considered the prior year when it was added. And then you see here, it's just amortizing or allocating insurance expense every month based on the number of days in the month. So in August, we have 31 days. In September, we have 30. That's why there's a difference there. If we keep going on so we're in January, it shows me what my prepaid balance is. So I've still got $19,904 left to allocate the rest of this year. And then that totals up to the $47,041. So, and like I said, we've kind of designed this. If I flip this to February, we have some macros that I think my Excel is blocking, but it would add the February column here automatically. We don't have to do any of that now. Kind of streamline that process. So one of the things that we do is say, okay, we've done this journal entry. So we have the month of January here. We have a journal entry tab that's designed for multi-view, and it's going to post the entry. We can upload this into our system, and I don't have to sit here and key all these details with these remarks. All of these remarks are just automatically uploaded. So it saves us a lot of time. So we would just save this as a text file, upload it in the system. It's pretty easy. So after that entry is posted, one of the things, and just so y'all know, I changed all these numbers. So things might look a little weird, but that's probably because I just made them random. But once the entry is posted, I should be able to go back to my balance sheet review and help me make sure that I posted it correctly, that I didn't have problems. So I use this Excel tool and this is a lot of information, but I just kind of want to give you, don't get lost in the details, but what I do here is I dump the trial balance out of my system into Excel. So that's what this is, just copy and paste here. And what this shows is, here's what opening cash was for this account. Here's the activity that happened in the month, and here's the closing balance for the accounts.
Could you
This
make it a
tool-
little bit bigger again, Darin?
Mhm.
Bigger. Our screen's pretty far away.
I know, and I've got high resolution screens. That probably does not help.
That's better.
So it's just a trial balance straight out of our system. I don't have to key this. I just copy and paste. It's really all I want you to see there. It's doing some formulas just to combine the account, the department number with the account number, so that I can then do some formulas here. But effectively what it does is it pulls all the information into by, I call it audit area. I used this when I was an auditor, but cash is the typical area of my staff is kind of broken up this way too. I have a cash person that's all they do. So I can have the balance sheet accounts here, and I can have, here's the status, so that anytime I can see what my staff's doing, where are they at. So like in this account, they've started on the reconciliation, they have not completed it. When they're done, they can go ready for review, and it'll change the color. When I've reviewed it, if I have some notes that they need to fix, I can put reviewed with notes, or I can just put reviewed. And at the end, once I've reviewed it, I feel good with everything, then I can, either put it to reviewed notes or reviewed. That flows back to the home page so that I can see here by all my balance sheet accounts for cash, it's reviewed with notes. Again, this is your balance sheet that we're reviewing every month, because if you tie your balance sheet, then your income statement is going to be correct. So when you get an audit, when they come in and they look at you, this is what they're looking at, all of these accounts. So I'm going to click on prepaids and go to it. And the account that I showed you before with the schedule is this account. So this $47,041.35 is what I need to tie back to. So if I go back to my support, don't know if it'll let me go. Let's see. No. Here we go. So this $47,041.35 is what I'm looking for, and that's what I have here. So imagine we do this, but we do this times every single account that we have. So just for prepaids, we have this many accounts, about 12. So this is something, once we work on month end and we make sure our balance sheet's good, we save all this on the network and then kind of use this tool just so that I know that my financial statements, when I give those to my boss, that they're as accurate as I can possibly get them. So I know that was a lot of information, but and just kind of down here. So this would be our balance sheet. This is what we're reconciling. And then every month I produce financial statements. We do responsibility reports. So that's a report that goes out to each department manager. So it could be radiology, it could be oncology. We send them how they did, down to their level. And then I produce PowerPoints. We have an overall for senior admin. We have a finance board meeting that we do once a month. We have the actual full board. And then actually after this meeting today, I'm going to the department manager meeting, where we present the financial statements to all department managers. So does anyone have any questions?
I would love to ask you a little bit about how those PowerPoints are different, because one thing we're going to talk about a little bit later is when we're doing our visualizations, we're going to be talking about how accountants do a lot of communication with non-accountants and how those reports need to look different depending on the audience. So can you talk just a second about that maybe?
Yep. Actually, our PowerPoint they're tweaked, but basically the master is a lot of information that I give to senior administration, because they want to see the details. Obviously, they're in the day-to-day, they're in the business every day, and they want to see it down to the details what's going on for that month. Finance is a part of that PowerPoint. So we take select slides that basically out of that master PowerPoint, and we say, okay, what's important to finance to see? So they're responsible for how we're doing financially as an organization. So there's things they care about. They don't want to see necessarily down to the department level or the weeds, but they may want to see the statistical information for certain departments, things that really drive our business, like our number of admissions in the hospital. They're worried about that. And the board would be too. But when we get to the board PowerPoint, it's much higher level. So it's going to be, here's our revenue, here's our expenses, here's our bottom line. The board is not, they definitely don't want to see details. A lot of them might not necessarily have a financial background, but so we kind of make it a lot more high level for them. And they get thrown a lot of information. You got to think when we have the finance meeting, but that is all we are there to talk about is how did we do in the last month? How did the hospital do? When we get to the board meeting, they're talking about operations, financials. I mean, the list goes on. So they have a lot to cover in about the same amount of time. So we have to make it very concise and be exactly what they're looking for. And then the department manager is probably, it's a little bit more expanded than finance, but it's not nearly as expanded as the full PowerPoint. But, we send out for department managers, this responsibility reports. That's their big piece of information, and they get that long before we have the department manager meeting. So they already have the details, and they actually have to go through and look at their performance and explain, we do budgets every year. So if they get a responsibility report and they're over budget, let's say on supplies, they've got to explain that. So they explain it to their senior leader and they turn in a form to me, so that I can keep track of that too. So if somebody came to me and said, why is oncology over in supplies, I would at least have what they provided me as an explanation. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that did. And I think we've got more questions if you have a few minutes.
I do.
Hi, Mr. Reed. My name is Ricky Poole. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. I have a question regarding if a new graduate has graduated, of course, I'm sorry, I'm sleepy. Where would you start them off in the accounting department?
So I only have a few positions here. Let's see, I have 6 people that report to me. 2 people are in accounts payable. Those wouldn't require an accounting degree. And really only one of my positions would require that. But we have a staff accountant. That's probably where you'd start. That's basically entry-level position. We actually hire people with associates in accounting. It doesn't have to be bachelor's. And then I have my staff accountant. I have a senior accountant, but my senior accountant's been here 26 years. So she's a long-term employee. Sorry about that. And then after, I have a bank accountant. That would be the other position. But typically you'd start out in that entry-level staff accountant and then either work up to the senior accountant or the cash accountant.
Okay, what are the responsibilities of the staff accountant?
It is, so those responsibilities, reports that I talked about, the staff accountant generates every single one of them and sends those out to the correct people. That takes a lot of time when it's done, but luckily our new system, it generates reports in the system. Back in the old system, they had to generate reports in the old system and hand key the numbers into Excel and format it because it's conditionally formatted. If your variance is higher than 5%, it puts it in yellow. If it's higher than 10, it puts it in red, things like that. My staff accountant also sends out daily stats. Obviously in a healthcare system, that's what we're focused on. How busy are we? Are we keeping staffing to levels that they need to be based on how busy we are? So It takes about an hour every morning for her to send out pull the stats and send it out to everyone. And then beyond that, it's just going to be a bunch of month-end entries that my staff accountant does. So they have certain areas they're responsible for on that sheet I had pulled up. They have certain accounts that they do, and they maintain some of that throughout the month. But then a month in, they pull it all together and post everything.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You said you started at Chris as the controller because you came from public accounting, right?
Correct.
And then-
Yes. I had, let me think, almost 9 years of experience before I came here. So yeah, you wouldn't typically, jump into a controller role. Excuse me. But my first job was accounting manager. And honestly, I probably shouldn't have started out as an accounting manager, but it was a small company. It's the title they gave. So it does depend on what industry you go in and how big the business is. Most people are going to start out as a staff accountant and then work their way up. I mean, at Darin and Tucker, when I started there, I had already worked 2.5 years, but I went back to the beginning, like I was a college grad, and was a staff accountant, and I worked my way up all the way to manager. So that was the position under partner, basically, before I left. Any other questions?
This is Ricky again. How did you use Excel to improve the process?
How did I'm sorry. Say that again.
Use Excel to improve the process?
It's everything that I do, just about. Excel is such a great tool. There are other tools out there too, but I told you I got into consulting. That's one of the reasons why, because I would take a problem or an issue, use Excel and fix it, basically. It is in every single thing that I do. That prepaid schedule, before I got here, they were taking and doing, if it was $1,000 invoice, they were doing the math every single month and saying, okay, I need to amortize $200. They'd get to the end of that amortization and they'd have 5 cents left. And they'd have to true up the 5 cents and do all that. Excel does all that work for you if you let it. You have to spend the time and you have to invest it. And that's hard sometimes when you're doing your day-to-day job, to stop and try to make something better. But if I fix it good today and make it better today, it's going to make my job easier next month and every month after that.
I completely agree. Thank you.
Two questions here. What Excel functions do you use the most, and how did you learn Excel? Was it more figure it out, hands-on, Google it, and figure it out as you go, or did you take a class?
So at Georgia Southern, they were very heavy on Excel. So I did get a good foundation there. I did take an office class. I did do the certification, the specialist, I believe. It's been so long, I can't remember. But so I did go that route. But I will tell you, my knowledge in Excel has been all on the job. And learning it, when you use it every day, you learn. And you don't have to know it all. Google knows. I think you alluded to that. You have to know how to Google it to figure it out. So a lot of people think I'm just the smartest person in the world because I figure something out in Excel, but it's really, I've used the smart people on the internet as my source. I just know how to Google what I need. Did I answer your question?
Oh, I had one more, but we've got one more here too. Kaden has a question.
To
Yeah.
sort of expand on that, because we were just talking about this in class earlier, has there ever been a point where it wasn't feasible to Google something you were having a problem with?
Well, it's Excel related or just in general?
Excel related in this case.
No, I mean, usually the thing about Excel is if you think it's possible, once you've learned the system and you think it could be remotely possible, it probably is. So you just have to find it. I mean, there's been times that I've had to spend a lot of time Googling and looking for it and searching forums of all these people from a long time ago that figured this out. I would say like macros, I know enough to copy and paste them and run them, not enough to build them. But there's a lot of power in that too. And I will say the other thing I think that's coming, and I've only tested this some is Microsoft now has Copilot. You have to pay for it, but it's their AI tool that can integrate in with Excel. So a lot of what it can do is suggest formulas for you. It can do pivot tables for you. I use those all the time. It's probably, when you did ask me that question, pivot tables is probably the number one function in Excel I use. And then VLOOKUP, when I'm looking at data and trying to compare two data sets. There's a new formula called XLOOKUP, and I just have not got on board with that yet. I need to, but it does the same thing. But yeah.
Are there any particular online sources that you like to work with, that you trust to have good information, that you would recommend to the class?
I don't know any off the top of my head. I do, when I do start Googling, there's ones that I say, okay, yeah, I've used this before. But it's never going to hurt you. I mean, even if they give you information that's not helpful to your problem, you at least roll that out. Okay, that's not it. And then you remember next time, if you have a different issue, maybe you can use that. So it's just a research thing. But, sometimes I would tell people, don't recreate the wheel. So other people have already done it. You just need to find what they've done.
But there's no particular places that when you have a problem, you think I should check here, there, and this other place.
No, I mean, there's a bunch of ones. They all have Excel in the name. But it might be a forum. I might even go on Reddit sometimes and look there. But no, I can't think of a specific one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
What's the best part of your day as your position as a controller, right?
When I get to go home. No, I mean, it's not necessarily, I can't think of one thing that I do. I mean, yes, making things better, that's always been something that I've really enjoyed. And it doesn't have to just be in accounting. I think that's one of the great impacts about our profession. I work in a healthcare system. I work in a hospital. I can help process anywhere. It doesn't have to be debits and credits. So I enjoy doing that. And with our department managers, if they have a problem, I'm usually able to help them, even if it has zero things to do with accounting. So I would say that's the thing I enjoy most.
What's the most stressful part of your job? Says Ricky again.
I will say managing people can not be fun sometimes. You have people come and go. That's been difficult. You have a really great person, and for whatever reason, they're moving or a life event happens and they leave. That's pretty tough, that you get to start all over again with all that progress you've made. But that's probably, the least fun part. Managing employees sometimes can be challenging.
Thank you.
How did you land the opportunity to be a controller for a regional hospital?
So I was a consultant with Darin Tucker doing those system implementation conversions. And I was here on site working with the accounting team, doing just system related stuff, not their day-to-day accounting. So they had already worked with me. They already knew me, they'd already seen what I could do. And then the position came up. So as soon as I decided that I was even interested, that really helped. I mean, when you're interviewing somewhere, it might be a 30-minute, hour interview. They don't really know much about you, but they had been working with me for 6 months. I've been coming on site Monday through Friday. So that's pretty much what got me the opportunity to be here. And of course, my experience at that time as well. So I worked, working in an accounting firm that focused on healthcare, that looks good if you want to go into and work for a healthcare system. But, in general, public accounting experience and having a CPA, which I do have, and that was a not fun thing. I'll say that, but I'm sure it was a breeze for Danielle, but for the rest of us, not fun.
Thank you so much for coming.